Natalie Rhodes had always believed the darkest nights came before dawn. But on this night, standing barefoot in the polished marble hallway of the Mercer penthouse, she learned that some nights didn't end in sunrise at all. Some nights ended in ruin. Her breath came uneven. A hand pressed against her swollen belly as another sharp contraction shot through her. 7 months pregnant, alone, terrified. Grant Mercer, her husband, the man who once swore to protect her, stood a few feet away, adjusting his cufflinks like he was preparing for a business meeting, not watching the mother of his child struggle to stay upright. "You need to sign," he said calmly, sliding a thick stack of divorce papers across the granite counter. "Tonight." Natalie blinked, stunned. "Grant, I'm in labor. I need to go to the hospital. Now." He exhaled with irritation, not concern. "You'll be fine. But I can't go into tomorrow's investor presentation with you still legally tied to me. Victoria says the board won't approve the funding if they think I'm connected to this mess." "This mess?" Natalie whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm carrying our child." "Exactly," he said sharply. "A liability." A tear broke loose, slipping down her cheek. Grant didn't notice. Or maybe he didn't care. She wasn't sure which hurt more. Behind him, the elevator doors slid open, revealing Victoria Hale in a diamond-studded black gown, her expression cold and triumphant. The woman didn't even pretend to look ashamed. She simply stepped inside, linked her arm through Grant's, and smirked. "You ready?" she asked. "The car's waiting. Paparazzi too. Let's give them something beautiful to write about." Natalie shook, disbelief numbing her fingers. "Grant, don't leave me here. I need help, please." "IFQ." For a moment, Grant looked at her, really looked at her, but whatever humanity he once had flickered out as fast as it came. "Sign the papers when you can still hold a pen," he said, stepping into the elevator. "I'll have someone send your things." The doors slid shut. Natalie's knees buckled, her body folding under the weight of betrayal and physical agony. She clutched the cold floor, breathing hard, her heart pounding wildly. The next contraction hit like fire. Nobody was coming. Nobody knew. And the one man who should have stayed had walked away to protect his reputation. She dragged herself toward the entryway, her vision swimming. She reached for her phone, but the screen flashed. No service. Grant must have disconnected her line. For the first time in her life, Natalie Rhodes felt truly invisible. Another contraction ripped through her. Her baby was coming. She forced herself up, grabbing the door handle, ready to crawl into the hallway if she had to. But when she swung the door open, she froze. Someone was standing there. Someone she hadn't seen in years. And the shock of who it was nearly stopped her heart. The person whispered, "Natalie, what did he do to you?" Natalie Rhodes had never imagined her life would come to this. Panting in a hallway, clutching her belly, tears burning down her cheeks. But years before this night of betrayal, she had been someone else entirely. Someone stronger, someone hopeful. Someone who believed in love more than logic. Born in Portland, Oregon, Natalie grew up in a quiet house filled with her mother's soft laughter and the scent of lemon tea. Her mother, Evelyn Rhodes, was a respected architect known for elegant, functional designs that brought natural light into every space. Evelyn had dreamed of building buildings that felt like home, not monuments to power. Natalie inherited both that vision and that heart. But at age 17, everything shifted. A fatal car crash, officially ruled an accident, stole Evelyn from her life. The loss shattered Natalie, but it also pushed her toward her mother's path. She won a scholarship to Columbia University, graduating in the top of her class. By 25, she was considered a rising star in New York's architectural scene. Her designs had warmth and soul rare in a city obsessed with steel and glass. Yet for all her brilliance, Natalie had one fatal flaw: she trusted too easily. When she met Grant Mercer at a charity auction, he was charming, ambitious, and seemingly captivated by her kindness. He praised her work, encouraged her dreams, and made her feel seen in a city that swallowed people whole. For a time, Natalie believed she had found her partner, someone who would help her build a future as stable as the homes she designed. She was wrong. Grant's encouragement turned into control. His compliments became critiques. His concerns slowly sharpened into commands disguised as love. By the time she realized she had become a supporting character in her own life, she was already pregnant 7 weeks along, hopeful that a baby would soften him. Instead, it hardened him. His company, Mercer Innovations, had been burning through cash. Investors wanted a clean image, a perfect narrative, and nothing about a pregnant wife fit the picture Grant wanted to paint. He began rewriting their story in the press, framing himself as a visionary and Natalie as a fragile, unstable woman, unable to manage stress. Whisper campaigns spread. Suddenly, people she had worked with for years avoided her as though she were contagious. Natalie kept going. She kept hoping. She kept believing. Grant still had goodness in him. Tonight proved he didn't. As she stood in that hallway, barely able to breathe from the pain radiating through her abdomen, a memory flashed across her mind, her mother's voice, gentle yet firm. "Nat, life will test you, but you've survived worse. You're stronger than you think." She wished her mother could see her now. She wished she could tell her she was scared. Another contraction ripped through her. Her vision blurred. The floor seemed to sway beneath her. She gripped the doorframe to stay upright. Her mind screamed one thing: I have to protect my baby. Her baby. The one innocent thing left in her life. As she fought through the pain, she realized something heartbreaking. No matter how hard she had tried, she had lost herself somewhere inside Grant's shadow. The confident architect, the devoted daughter, the woman with dreams that Natalie had been slowly suffocated. But tonight might break her completely. Unless the person standing in front of her was really who she thought. Because the silhouette in the hallway, a tall figure, broad shoulders, soft eyes filled with shock, belonged to a man she once trusted more than anyone. A man she never expected to see at her door again. A man who whispered her name like he'd been searching for it for years. "Natalie, it's me, Asher." The hallway outside the penthouse felt like a tunnel collapsing in on itself. Natalie clung to the doorframe, struggling to stay upright as Asher Kingsley stepped fully into the light. He looked different from the boy she'd once studied beside in Columbia's late-night studio sessions. The shy young man with messy hair and ink-stained sleeves was gone. Before her stood a man carved by power and precision. His charcoal coat fell perfectly over his frame, the fabric unmistakably bespoke. A subtle glint from a platinum Kingsley Group security pin caught the hallway's soft glow. His presence carried an energy she'd only seen in boardrooms and magazine profiles, an aura of control, wealth, and quiet intensity. Yet his expression now held no superiority, no distance. Only concern. Deep, raw, immediate. "Natalie," he said again, softer this time, as if afraid she might break. "You're in labor." I think so," she whispered, her voice thin, her lips trembling. Grant left. He left. A storm passed across Asher's eyes, a flash of anger she'd never seen in him before. But he pushed it down, stepping closer. "You shouldn't be standing. Come on, we need to get you to a hospital." This building, Grant's prized penthouse on the 48th floor of Park Avenue, residences had once seemed impressive to her, with its sweeping views of Manhattan, floor-to-ceiling glass, and a balcony overlooking the glitter of Fifth Avenue. But now the polished marble, the gold trim, the art pieces, Grant pretended to understand, they all felt cold. Empty. A cage decorated with luxury. Natalie tried to move, but a wave of pain made her curl inward. Asher caught her before she collapsed. His arms were steady, warm, firm, nothing like Grant's careless grip or the dismissive touches she'd been forced to accept in recent months. For the first time all night, Natalie felt safe enough to breathe. How did you even know I was here?" she managed, still gasping. Asher hesitated. "Your number wasn't working. I came to check on you. Something didn't feel right." She wanted to ask more, but another contraction hit, harsh and fast. Asher swept her up effortlessly, carrying her down the hallway. The elevator dinged open as if waiting for them. Inside, the mirrored walls reflected a broken woman in pajamas clinging to a man she hadn't seen in years, and the contrast jolted Natalie's chest with shame. "I look awful," she whispered, instinctively wiping her tears. "You look terrified," Asher corrected softly, "and you shouldn't be facing any of this alone." The elevator descended, smooth and silent. Outside, the city roared sirens. Traffic, the hum of Manhattan life never sleeping. The sky above was deep ink black, the only light coming from the glow of skyscrapers slicing through the dark. Asher guided her toward a sleek black SUV parked right at the entrance. The driver leapt out, opening the door immediately. "Miss Rhodes, we've been expecting you," he said. Natalie blinked. "Expecting me? What?" "Later," Asher murmured. "Hospital first." The SUV sped into the night, weaving through Park Avenue traffic. Natalie clutched the seatbelt with one hand, her belly with the other. The pain intensified, but what terrified her wasn't the contractions. It was everything she didn't understand. "How long have you been watching over me?" she asked, breathless. "Asher, why were you there?" He turned to her slowly, eyes shadowed with a truth he'd clearly kept for years. "Because," he said quietly, "you were never safe in that penthouse, and Grant isn't the man you think he is." Natalie stiffened. "What do you mean? What do you know?" Asher swallowed. "Natalie, there's something I need to tell you about your mother. About the night she died." The SUV jolted to a stop as Natalie gasped, her entire world spinning. The world outside the SUV blurred into streaks of light as they sped uptown. Natalie gripped the leather seat while trying to steady her breathing, but the pain kept tightening, sharp and merciless. She could barely sit upright. Every contraction was a reminder that she was alone, except she wasn't. Not tonight, not with Asher next to her. But his last words cut deeper than the pain ripping through her body. "Something about your mother. About the night she died." Natalie forced herself to speak through clenched teeth. "What are you talking about, Asher? My mom's accident was an accident." He didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened, eyes flickering with hesitation. "No, guilt." "Asher," she pressed, her voice trembling. "Tell me." He exhaled slowly. "For years, I wanted to. But your father, he didn't want you to know. He thought the truth would destroy you." "My father?" Her stomach dropped, even as her baby pushed downward. "He died thinking it was a drunk driver." "It wasn't," Asher said softly. "The vehicle that hit your mother belonged to Hale Capital. They covered it up." Natalie's entire body froze, pain momentarily forgotten. "Hale Capital?" Her pulse hammered. "You mean Victoria Hale's firm?" Asher nodded, his expression grim. "Her firm, her car, and her driver." Natalie felt the ground of her life crack beneath her. The woman who had walked into her home tonight, wearing diamonds and carrying her husband on her arm, was connected to the crash that stole her mother's life. Her breath hitched. Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Your father settled privately with them," Asher said. "Under pressure. Rhodes Industries was in trouble back then. Hale Capital threatened to destroy the company if he went public." Natalie's eyes filled with disbelief. "So he chose the company over the truth?" "He chose to protect you from a war he wasn't strong enough to fight," Asher corrected gently. "And he thought you would never cross paths with them again." Natalie presses a hand to her chest, struggling to breathe. "And Grant? He knew Victoria Hale, of course he did. She's funding his company." Endere. Asher's silence said everything. Another contraction hit, this time so fierce, she cried out. "Are we close?" Asher said urgently, leaning forward. 2 minutes, the driver answered. Natalie's head dropped back against the seat. Her thoughts spun wildly. Her mother's death, her father's silence, Grant's betrayal, Victoria's cold smile. All of it circling her like a storm she had unknowingly stepped into years ago. "Asher," she whispered hoarsely, "why did you come tonight?" "Really?" He stared at her, eyes burning with something she didn't understand, something she wasn't sure she could handle right now. "Because I couldn't watch you be destroyed by people who never deserved you." His voice softened. "And because I never stopped." Before he could finish, the SUV screeched to a halt in front of New York Presbyterian Hospital. Nurses rushed out as soon as the doors opened. Asher scooped Natalie into his arms before she could protest. "Wait," she gasped, clutching his coat. "There's something else, isn't there? Something you're not saying." He didn't deny it. His silence was an answer by itself. As the nurses wheeled her inside, the hospital lights flickered overhead, bright and blinding. Natalie's vision blurred again, not from pain this time, but from fear of what truth might be waiting in the shadows of her past. A nurse leaned over her. "Ma'am, we need to get you into a delivery room right now. If you are 7 of Damasco." Natalie nodded weakly, gripping the rails of the gurney. But just before the doors swung shut behind her, she heard Asher's voice, quiet, heavy, almost broken. "Natalie, there's more about Grant you don't know." Her heart stopped as the doors slammed closed, and she whispered, "What did he do?" Grant Mercer had always believed the world existed to admire him. And on the night he abandoned his pregnant wife to attend the Hale Capital fundraiser, he felt more invincible than ever. Inside the ballroom of the Whitmore Hotel, everything gleamed: gold chandeliers, crystal glassware, polished marble floors reflecting the soft glow of Manhattan's skyline through towering windows. Cameras flashed nonstop. Investors circled like sharks dressed in tailored suits. Every detail of the event was designed for one purpose: to elevate Grant, to crown him as the next rising titan of tech. And he believed it. He stood near the bar, whiskey swirling in his hand, the fabric of his tuxedo perfectly pressed. His hair slicked back, his smile sharp, his posture calculated to radiate confidence. Tonight was the night everything would turn around for him. Tonight was the night he would prove to the world and to Victoria Hale that he was worthy of her investment. "Grant," Victoria purred, approaching with a champagne flute in hand. Her black silk gown clung to her deliberately, diamonds dripping from her ears, her lips painted in a shade that matched danger. "You made quite the entrance earlier. The press loves you." Grant smirked. "They should. I worked for this." "Oh, I know," she murmured, brushing his arm lightly. "And I appreciate your willingness to make hard choices." Hard choices. That's what she called abandoning his wife in early labor. Grant swallowed the bitter truth behind another sip of whiskey. "You said investors needed a clean narrative. Well, they've got it. One unmarried founder. No messy personal attachments." Victoria leaned in. "You did the smart thing." "Did I?" he asked casually, though a flicker of unease ran through him. He pushed it down. "Natalie will sign the papers. She always gives in." Victoria's smile froze, razor thin. "She better. I don't tolerate loose ends." Grant bristled, but before he could answer, a group of investors approached. "Grant, Victoria, everyone's talking about Mercer Innovations' new prototype. When's the next round of funding?" Grant launched into his pitch: numbers he'd inflated, projections he'd fabricated, promises built on air. The more he talked, the more he convinced himself everything was under control. But cracks were forming. His lead engineer had quit last week. The prototype wasn't stable. And a quiet rumor had begun circulating. A mysterious investor was reviewing Mercer Innovations' financial records. Grant dismissed it. Everyone loved rumors. But then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, expecting a congratulatory message. Instead, a notification from his security system flashed. "Unusual activity detected. Penthouse. 10:41 p.m. Grant stiffened. "What the hell?" Victoria looked over. "Problems?" "Probably nothing," he said, though unease prickled his spine. "Natalie's probably packing her things." "Good," Victoria said. "She should understand her place." And 21. But Grant wasn't listening. Another notification came through. This one sent ice through his veins. Unknown male entered residence. His jaw clenched. Unknown male? Natalie didn't have friends. She barely went outside anymore. And Grant had made sure of that. He excused himself and stepped into a quieter hallway, calling his head of security. "Who's in my penthouse?" "We're checking, sir," the guard said. "But it appears someone escorted Mrs. Rhodes out of the unit. She's already left the building." "Escorted?" Grant felt sweat at the base of his neck. Who took her?" "We're reviewing the footage, sir." Grant ended the call abruptly, chest tight with anger, no, with fear. Because the only thing worse than Natalie disobeying him was someone else protecting her. Victoria appeared behind him, irritated. "Grant, the board wants you back inside. Don't wander off. You're making us look disorganized." "I do." End quote. "I do." Grant forced himself to breathe, forced his expression into something composed. "Of course, coming." She turned her back, completely unaware that her empire sat on the brink of sabotage. Because Grant suddenly recognized the name in the security report, a name he hadn't heard in years, a name he hoped would never return. Asher Kingsley. Grant's breath froze, and in that moment, he realized he had just made the worst mistake of his life. The bright, sterile lights of the hospital made everything feel unreal, too sharp, too loud, too cold. Natalie lay on the delivery bed, shaking uncontrollably as nurses moved around her with efficient urgency. Monitors beeped steadily, echoing like a countdown to a moment she wasn't ready for. Sweat clung to her forehead, her breath shallow and trembling. Pain tore through her again. She cried out, gripping the metal rails so hard her knuckles turned white. "You're doing great, sweetheart," a nurse named Carla said gently. "Just breathe through it. We're right here." No, Natalie thought. No one's here. Not the person who should be. Not the man who vowed to be by her side. Grant was probably clinking glasses at the fundraiser, bragging about his genius while she lay here alone, terrified and abandoned. Asher had stayed outside per hospital policy, but even knowing he was nearby couldn't fully chase away the crushing sense of being unwanted. Unchosen. Disposable. Her chest tightened with something deeper than contraction. Pains, grief, humiliation, betrayal, all tangled into one suffocating knot. Another contraction hit. She gasped, arching forward, tears spilling. A nurse quickly positioned pillows behind her. "Her blood pressure is dropping," another nurse called out. Natalie's vision fluttered. The room swayed, blending into white streaks. Somewhere far away, she heard voices urgent, hurried. "She's dehydrated. 2000. We need IV fluids, now." "Where is the father? We need consent for." "There is no father present." That sentence, those 6 simple words, stabbed straight through her. No father present. It wasn't just true. It was a verdict. She squeezed her eyes shut, wishing she could silence the world. Wishing she could silence the memory of Grant's cold expression as he'd walked away from her. Her breathing turned shallow. Pain radiated down her spine. Fear clawed up her throat. Her hands trembled as she reached for someone, anyone. "Mom," she whispered weakly, not even realizing she said it aloud. "Help me." A nurse brushed her hair from her forehead. "You're going to be okay, honey. Just stay with us." But Natalie wasn't sure she could. Not with the contractions crashing harder. Not with the crushing weight of loneliness suffocating her. Not with the truth Asher had hinted gnawing at the corners of her mind. Her mother's death. A cover-up. Hail Capital. What else had her father hidden? How deep did Victoria's poison run? A new contraction ripped through her, stronger than the rest. Her body bowed, a scream choking in her throat. "Baby's heart rate is dropping," a nurse shouted. Natalie's eyes shot open, fear piercing through the haze. "No," she gasped. "No, no, please, he has to be okay, please." Her baby, her little boy, the one innocent thing left in her life. Her vision blurred again. Her body felt foreign, heavy, weak. She could hear the nurses, but their voices sounded distant, muffled, as if underwater. "We need to prep for an emergency C-section. She's losing consciousness. Page the on-call surgeon now." Natalie fought to keep her eyes open. She couldn't slip away. Not now. Not like her mother had. Her baby needed her. She tried to speak, but only a broken whisper escaped. "Asher." The room spun violently. Her body sagged, her grip on the rails loosening. The edges of her vision darkened. "Natalie, stay with us," Carla shouted, tapping her cheek lightly. But the shadows were pulling her under, swallowing the lights, the noise, the fear. The last thing she heard before everything went black was the door slamming open, footsteps rushing in, and a familiar voice ragged with panic shouting her name. "Natalie, oh God, what did they do to you?" The world returned to Natalie in fragments, sounds before shapes, fear before clarity. Voices drifted like echoes inside a tunnel. Machines beeped rhythmically. The room felt colder than before, but her skin burned with fever. She tried to shift, but a dull ache radiated across her abdomen. When she opened her eyes, everything sharpened at once. She was no longer in the delivery room. She was in a dimly lit recovery suite, an IV dripping beside her, heart monitors tracing her unsteady pulse. Her breath hitched when she realized someone was sitting at her bedside. Asher. His blazer was tossed aside, sleeves rolled up, hair disheveled in a way she had never seen. His elbows rested on his knees, hands clasped, head bowed like he had been holding vigil through the night. When he heard her stir, he shot up instantly. "Natalie? Nat, can you hear me?" She nodded weakly. "The baby?" Relief washed over his face so intensely she felt it physically. "He's okay. He's small, but he's breathing strong. He's a fighter just like you." "I could business." A breath she hadn't realized she was holding escaped her chest. Tears slipped down her cheeks, soft and helpless. I'm really a mom now." Asher's eyes softened. "Yeah, you are." But the moment shattered as memories flooded back, the pain, The chaos, the panic, the loud voices shouting she was crashing. She remembered slipping away. She remembered darkness. And she remembered the door slamming open. She turned to Asher. "You were there. How did you get into the room?" His jaw tightened. He hesitated. "I didn't mean to cause a scene," he said, voice low. "But when I heard the code call, I thought," he swallowed hard, "I thought I was too late." Something tightened in Natalie's chest. "Asher, there's something you're not telling me." Before he could answer, the door opened. A doctor stepped in, clipboard in hand. "Miss Rhodes," he said kindly, "you gave us a scare. Your blood pressure dropped dangerously low. We had to perform an emergency C-section, but you pulled through." "And the baby?" she asked again, needing to hear it twice. "He's in the neonatal unit for monitoring, but he's stable. You'll be able to see him in an hour." Natalie nodded, overwhelmed. Then the doctor continued, "There's something else. We noticed something unusual in your toxicology report." Asher straightened instantly. "What do you mean?" The doctor frowned. "There were traces of benzodiazepines in her system." "If that Natalie froze. "What? I don't take anything like that." "We know," the doctor said gently. "But the levels indicate repeated exposure over the last several weeks." A cold wave washed through her. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Grant's tea. He said it was to help with pregnancy anxiety. He insisted I drink it every night." Asher's face darkened with a fury she'd never seen. His hands curled into fists. "He drugged you," the doctor continued, unaware of the history behind the name. "It's fortunate the baby was delivered early. Continued exposure could have harmed him." Natalie covered her mouth, her breath breaking. Grant hadn't just abandoned her. He had been weakening her for weeks, making her seem unstable, emotional, irrational. No wonder she felt exhausted all the time. No wonder she had trouble focusing. He'd been setting her up, slowly, quietly, cruelly. Asher stepped closer, voice shaking. "Natalie, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't stress. He was poisoning you." Her pulse spiked. "Why? Why would he?" "To destroy your credibility," Asher said. "To make the board believe you were mentally unfit. To cut you out of every part of his life." Natalie felt the room tilt. "He almost killed me." Asher nodded. "And he doesn't know you survived." She stared at him, breath trembling. "What do you mean?" He took a slow breath, eyes locked on hers. "Grant disappeared from the gala an hour ago. Victoria Hale is missing too. And someone else hacked into Mercer Innovations' accounts while you were in surgery." Natalie's heart pounded. "Asher, who?" He hesitated, then leaned in closer, voice barely above a whisper. "Someone who wanted you dead." Morning light crept slowly through the blinds, painting soft gold stripes across the hospital room. For the first time in hours, the world felt calm. Natalie lay propped against pillows, her body still aching, stitches pulling with every breath, but her mind was finally beginning to clear. No more sedatives slipping secretly into her bloodstream. No more being gaslit into believing she was fragile or unstable. No more being controlled. "You ready?" the nurse asked with a warm smile. "Your son is waiting to meet you properly." Her heart fluttered. She nodded. Asher rose from the chair beside her bed. He'd barely slept. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but when he looked at her, his voice softened. "Take it slow. I've got you." She didn't argue. Letting someone hold her arm as she walked felt strange, but not weak, almost comforting. She wasn't used to that. The walk to the neonatal unit felt long, her legs trembling, her steps small and cautious. Asher matched his pace to hers, one steady hand hovering near the small of her back, ready to catch her if she swayed. He didn't hover possessively like Grant used to. He simply offered support, and she felt the difference down to her bones. When they reached the viewing window, her breath caught. Her baby, her tiny miracle, lay in a clear bassinet, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. He was impossibly small, his chest rising and falling gently. A swirl of dark hair covered his head. His tiny fist rested near his cheek, as if he were dreaming of something gentle. Natalie felt her heart crack open. "That's him," Asher whispered, his voice reverent. "He's strong. Just like you." A nurse opened the door and motioned her inside. "You can hold him now, Miss Rhodes." Her hands trembled as she sat in the rocking chair. When they placed the baby into her arms, a sob burst from her chest, soft, broken, relieved. She pressed her cheek to her son's forehead, breathing in his scent, memorizing the warmth of his skin. "I'm here," she whispered. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. If you Mesdra." Asher stepped back, giving her space, but she could feel him watching, quiet, protective, a presence that made the moment feel even more real. Her son stirred, tiny fingers curling around hers. For the first time in months, Natalie felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. But the peace didn't last long. A nurse entered suddenly, holding a folder. "Miss Rhodes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but social services was contacted earlier this morning." Natalie stiffened. "What? Why?" The nurse hesitated. "Your husband reported you as emotionally unstable after childbirth. They wanted to verify the baby's safety." Asher stepped forward instantly. "She's not his wife anymore, and he has no legal grounds." The nurse nodded. "We know. And once your toxicology report came through, the claims were dismissed. But he also tried to visit." Natalie froze. "Grant was here?" Her heart thudded painfully. The nurse lowered her voice. "He was aggressive. Security escorted him out." Natalie clutched her baby closer, fear prickling across her skin. "Is he still here?" "No," the nurse replied. "He left." But not quietly. Natalie swallowed hard. Grant was unraveling. And desperate men did desperate things. Asher's jaw tightened, his voice low and controlled. "Nat, listen to me carefully. While you were in surgery, someone hacked into Mercer Innovations' servers. Financial documents were copied, private emails too." Natalie frowned. "By who?" "We don't know for sure," Asher said. "But whoever it was is working against Grant and possibly Victoria." "And you think that's connected to everything?" Asher nodded. "Someone is moving pieces behind the scenes. Someone dangerous." Natalie held her son tighter, her pulse quickening. "Why would anyone target me?" she whispered. Asher met her gaze, eyes troubled. "Because, Natalie, they're not just after Grant." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "They're after the Rhodes name, and they know who you really are." Natalie froze, blood draining from her face. "What do you mean?" she breathed. Asher leaned in, his next words shattering the fragile calm around them. "You're not just Natalie Rhodes, the architect. You're the rightful heir to Rhodes Industries, and someone wants you gone before you claim it." In one. The hospital cafeteria buzzed with low voices, clinking cups, and the hum of vending machines, but Natalie felt every sound scraping against her skin. After feeding her son and settling him back into the neonatal unit, she tried to steady herself at a small corner table with a cup of lukewarm tea. Asher sat across from her, alert, watching every shift in her expression. He had just revealed the truth. She was the legal heir to Rhodes Industries. The company her father had once built. The company she'd been told was sold off. The company someone was now trying to keep her away from permanently. Natalie rubbed her temples, her voice barely above a whisper. "My father never told me." "Why?" "Because," Asher said gently, "he feared the board. He feared Hale Capital. He feared what would happen if you stepped into the spotlight unprotected." "And Grant?" she asked, the word tasting sour. "Did he know?" Asher nodded grimly. "Not at first. But he found out. Victoria made sure he did." Natalie felt a sickening twist in her stomach. "So she targeted him. To get to me." "Exactly." Before she could respond, a commotion erupted near the cafeteria entrance. Heads turned. Voices rose. Natalie stiffened as she caught a familiar voice, angry, slurred, echoing across the room. "Where is she? Where the hell is she?" "Grant." Her heart slammed against her ribs. He stumbled into view, hair disheveled, tie hanging loose, eyes wild. His expensive tuxedo jacket was gone, his shirt wrinkled as though he'd slept in it or fought in it. Security trailed behind him, trying to calm him down, but he shoved them away. "I want to see my wife," he shouted. Natalie flinched. Asher stood immediately, positioning himself between her and the commotion. "You are trespassing," a guard warned. "You've been escorted out once already. Leave before." "Shut up," Grant barked. "She can't keep my son from me." The word stabbed through Natalie. Her breath stopped. He didn't care when she begged for help. He didn't care if she died in childbirth. He didn't care if the baby lived or not until her survival threatened his plans. Now he wanted control. the appearance of control, the illusion of a perfect father. Asher stepped forward, voice cold enough to freeze air. "You're not going near her." Grant's head snapped toward the voice. When he recognized Asher, his expression twisted into hatred. You think you can swoop in and ruin everything? You think you can steal my family? You did that yourself," Asher replied evenly. Grant laughed a jagged, manic sound. "You think she loves you? You think she'll pick you over the father of her child?" Asher didn't blink. "She won't pick a man who drugged her." The cafeteria gasped as several people covered their mouths. Grant's face drained of color. "That's a lie." Asher didn't budge. "The toxicology report says otherwise." End quote. Security stepped closer. A nurse whispered to another. A man nearby lifted his phone, recording. Grant saw it and lunged, knocking the phone away, voice cracking with desperate rage. "You don't understand," he shouted. "Victoria promised everything if I cut Natalie out. She promised funding, a seat at the table. She said the board wanted Natalie gone, she said." He stopped himself, too late. Natalie stood slowly, trembling but resolute. She said, "What, Grant?" Grant turned toward her. For a moment, he looked almost human, scared, unraveling, trapped in the web he'd helped spin. Then his expression twisted into something darker. "Natalie, let's talk alone. Please, I can fix this." She shook her head. "You already broke it." He stepped toward her. Security reached for him. And then, the cafeteria doors slammed open. Victoria Hale strode in like a blade of ice, flanked by two men in tailored suits. Her gaze cut across the crowd and landed on Natalie, cold, calculating, poisonous. "Enough," she snapped. Grant paled, realizing Victoria wasn't here to save him, she was here to silence him. For a moment, the entire cafeteria froze. Victoria Hale commanded silence without raising her voice. Her presence alone, sleek black dress, silver hair combed into a perfect chignon, diamonds flashing sharp as knives made people step back. She looked like someone who owned every room she entered. Someone who expected obedience. Someone who destroyed lives without leaving fingerprints. Her gaze drifted from Grant to Natalie, taking in the hospital gown, the exhaustion, the faint tremble in her stance. A small, satisfied smile touched the corner of her lips. "So," Victoria said, voice cool and controlled, "the prodigal road's daughter survives." Natalie swallowed hard. "Get out." Victoria chuckled softly. "My dear, I'm not here for you." She flicked a dismissive glance at Grant. "I'm here to handle a liability." Grant stiffened. "Victoria, what are you doing? We need to talk." "No," she cut sharply. "You need to shut your mouth." Asher stepped between them. "You shouldn't be here." Victoria's smile tightened. "You've always been sentimental, Mr. Kingsley. It's adorable." Inefficient, but adorable. Asher didn't move. "Leave, now." Victoria snapped her fingers. The two men behind her, private security, clearly moved forward. They weren't here to talk. They were here to intimidate. Grant's bravado cracked. "Victoria, wait, don't do this. I kept my end of the deal. I cut her out. I followed every step you." She turned slowly, her voice cold enough to freeze. "You failed. She isn't dead." A wave of gasps passed through the cafeteria. Natalie's breath caught. "Excuse me?" Victoria didn't look at her. "Your husband was supposed to ensure you remained incapacitated. Permanently. We can't have the road's heiress reclaiming her birthright. Not when we've spent years constructing her absence." Natalie's heart thundered. "You tried to kill me." Victoria finally turned her gaze fully toward her. "Don't be dramatic. We tried to remove you from the board's consideration. Your father never wanted you involved. We merely honored his initial wish." "That's not what happened," Asher said sharply. "You blackmailed her father after your company caused the crash that killed her mother." A murmur surged through the room. People were recording now. Victoria didn't flinch. "A tragic accident." "It wasn't," Asher snapped. Victoria's voice lowered, dripping venom. "Your father agreed to silence for the sake of his company. And so will you." Natalie trembled not from fear, but from rage. "You don't get to erase me." Victoria arched an eyebrow. "My dear, I already have, for 10 years. Grant finally spoke, panic tightening his voice. "Victoria, please don't throw me under the bus. You promised." "I promised you a future," she said icily, "but you delivered chaos. You let your wife escape. You let Kingsley get involved. You let everything fall apart. Grant's breath quickened. I can fix it. Just give me another chance. Victoria stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear, though everyone strained to catch her words. Grant, sweetheart, I don't need you anymore. Grant's face collapsed. What? You were useful, she said casually. But now, you're a liability. Natalie watched his composure shatter. For the first time, Grant looked truly afraid. You can't do this, he whispered. Victoria smiled coldly. I can, and I have. Grant reached for her arm, desperate. One of her guards grabbed him, twisting his wrist behind his back. He cried out, stumbling to his knees. People gasped. Someone shouted for security. Phones were filming from every angle. Victoria's voice came out smooth, ruthless. Remove him. Haisha. The guards began dragging Grant toward the exit. He kicked, panicking. Natalie, please help me. Tell them, I didn't mean it. I didn't know. Natalie stared at him, her heart steady. He had left her to die. He had poisoned her. He had tried to steal her child. He had stood with the woman who murdered her mother. There was nothing left to save. Grant's screams echoed through the hall. Victoria turned back to Natalie, smoothing an invisible wrinkle from her dress. Don't get comfortable, Miss Rhodes. This is far from over. Asher stepped closer to Natalie protectively. You just made the biggest mistake of your career. Victoria smirked. On the contrary, I never lose. Natalie lifted her chin. Then you've never met a Rhodes woman. For the first time, Victoria's cool facade cracked. Then a hospital administrator rushed in, face pale. Miss Rhodes, you need to come with us. It's your baby. Something's happening. Natalie's blood ran cold. Asher grabbed her hand as she whispered, Please, no, not him. Natalie's heart pounded as she raced down the hallway. Asher right beside her. She could barely breathe. Every horrible possibility flashed through her mind. Her baby too small, too fragile, too new to fight alone. She felt like the walls were closing in, the sterile lights too bright, the air too thin. When they reached the neonatal unit, a doctor stepped out to meet them. His expression was serious, but not tragic. That gave Natalie enough hope to stay standing. Miss Rhodes, he said gently, your son had a brief drop in oxygen levels, likely due to stress, but he's stable now. The crisis passed quickly. Natalie sagged against the wall, a sob tearing from her chest, not of fear, but sheer emotional exhaustion. Asher placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. He's okay, she whispered. Yes, the doctor assured. He's strong. He just needs monitoring. You can see him again in a moment. In 40, end course. Natalie covered her face, the relief so sharp it almost hurt. Gladness, grief, rage, heartbreak, it all blurred together. But Asher wasn't focused on relief. He was watching the doctor with narrowed eyes. Was anyone near the unit before this happened? The doctor hesitated. There was some disruption in the hallway. A group of people crowding near the entrance during the earlier altercation. There's a possibility the noise startled some of the infants, but nothing directly harmful. Wide? Asher nodded, jaw tight. Natalie knew exactly what he was thinking. Grant, Victoria. Chaos following them like a storm. But she couldn't deal with them now. Not when her baby needed her more than her anger did. Can I sit with him? She asked quietly. The doctor nodded. In a few minutes. The nurses are adjusting his monitors. Natalie exhaled shakily and turned to Asher. I can't do this. Not all at once. I can't fight them and protect him and make sense of my past. And Asher caught her hands gently. You don't have to do it all at once, and you don't have to do it alone. She blinked at him, her throat tightening. You keep saying that. Because it's true. His eyes held something she wasn't ready to name. Something she'd tried ignoring ever since the college years. Something that made her heart trip over itself. But before she could respond, Asher's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire expression changed. What is it? Natalie asked. Asher inhaled slowly. Grant's company is collapsing. Natalie stared. What? He turned the phone so she could see. Headlines were erupting across every major business network. Mercer Innovations under investigation. CEO Grant Mercer accused of fraud. Hacked emails reveal financial misconduct. Another headline flashed. Hale Capital withdraws all support. Victoria had dropped him. Publicly, brutally. Natalie felt a strange pressure in her chest, something between vindication and sorrow. Grant had destroyed her life, but watching his downfall unravel in real time felt surreal, like he was finally tasting the poison he had fed her. "He deserves this," she whispered. "Every second of it." Asher nodded. "He does." More notifications poured in. Whistleblower leaks, employee testimonies, investors demanding refunds. Then, a photo. Grant being dragged out of the Whitmore Hotel in handcuffs, screaming at reporters. Natalie stared. He was arrested? For embezzlement, Asher confirmed. And drug tampering. They found the prescription bottles in your penthouse kitchen. Her mouth fell open. He kept them? He's sloppy when he panics. Asher exhaled, and he's panicking. About what? Asher hesitated. Grant told police you were mentally unstable and self-harming. But when they saw your toxicology report, they realized exactly what he'd been doing. Natalie felt her knees weaken. So he tried to use my near-death as evidence against me? Yes, Asher said softly, but it backfired. Natalie pressed a hand to her heart, overwhelmed. So, it's over? Asher shook his head slowly. Not even close. She stared at him, fear creeping back. What do you mean? Asher's voice lowered, steady but grim. Grant isn't the one we need to worry about anymore. And 40ta. Footsteps approached behind them. Slow, deliberate. Natalie turned and froze. Victoria Hale stood in the corridor, calm, composed, eyes glittering with something lethal. "Congratulations, Natalie," she said. "You just became my biggest problem." Natalie froze, her breath catching in her throat. Victoria's heels clicked sharply against the polished hospital floor as she approached with the cold confidence of someone who had survived countless corporate wars. Two of her private security guards followed, hands folded in front of them, eyes scanning the hallway like she owned it. She always behaved like she owned everything. "Natalie," Victoria said smoothly, "I'm impressed. You managed to stay alive. That complicates things." Asher stepped forward immediately, shielding Natalie from view. "You're violating hospital security. Leave." Victoria's lips curved. "Please, these people work for me more often than you realize." "Bicam." "Not anymore," Asher shot back. "The board at Rhodes Industries is aware of your presence here, and they're reviewing every deal your firm ever touched." Victoria's eyes narrowed just slightly enough for Natalie to notice a crack in the armor. But the woman was experienced. She recovered instantly. "Natalie," she said, turning her full attention toward her, "your father wanted you nowhere near the company. He knew you weren't ready. You still aren't." Natalie's jaw tightened. "My father didn't want me dead." A glint of annoyance flickered across Victoria's face. "Drama doesn't suit you, dear. No one wanted you dead. But a nervous breakdown, a quiet retreat from public life, those can be arranged." Natalie's stomach twisted. "You poisoned me." "No," Victoria said calmly. "Your husband, your foolish, desperate husband, overplayed his role. He accelerated the timeline. Had he just remained obedient." "Obedient?" Natalie repeated, disbelief lacing her voice. Victoria waved a dismissive hand. "Men like him are useful only when they follow instructions. He was instructed to destabilize you, not kill you, but incompetence is common among his type." Natalie felt heat crawl up her spine. "You manipulated him." "I gave him a future," Victoria corrected. "He was nothing before I invested. You should thank me." Asher scoffed. "Grant was a puppet. And you're angry," your puppet snapped his strings. Victoria's eyes sharpened. "And now he's in custody, singing like a canary. Fortunately for me, I've survived worse scandals than a disgruntled ex-CEO. But you won't survive this," Asher said firmly. "Rhodes Industries has majority ownership back under Natalie's name. The documents were filed this morning." Natalie blinked. "What?" Asher turned to her, his voice softening. "Your father left a hidden clause in the trust. If there was ever a credible threat to your well-being, the shares would automatically transfer to you." Victoria's expression darkened. "That clause was sealed." "It was," Asher said, "until your attacks on Natalie triggered it. You unsealed it yourself." A ripple of shock shot through Natalie. All this time, she had believed she was powerless, but her father had protected her in the one place she never thought to look the future. Victoria stepped closer, fury simmering behind her perfect facade. You have no idea what you're stepping into, Miss Rhodes. Rhodes Industries is a battlefield. A child raised in sunlight doesn't survive long underground. I survived your poison, Natalie said quietly. I survived your lies. I survived your plan to erase me. I can survive anything. Victoria tilted her head, studying her. Confidence doesn't equal capability. No, Asher said, but survival does. To date her. A nurse walking by halted nervously as the tension escalated. Victoria ignored her. You think you've won? Victoria asked softly, almost amused. You think the board will bow to you? The heiress who disappeared? The girl who married a man beneath her? The fragile mother who nearly died giving birth? Natalie lifted her chin. I'm not fragile anymore. Victoria leaned in, whispering, I'm not done with you. Asher stepped between them like a wall. Yes, you are. I cover. Victoria's smile vanished completely. Then a phone rang, Victoria's. She answered sharply. What? Her face drained of color. What do you mean the investigation is targeting me? I didn't authorize. What evidence? Pause. What leaked email? Her eyes darted to Asher, suspicion and fury burning in equal measure. You, she hissed. What did you do? Asher didn't blink. I didn't do anything. He turned to Natalie. She did. Victoria spun to her, stunned. Natalie stared back with quiet fire. Consider this my first move. 4 weeks later, Manhattan glittered under winter lights as black cars glided toward the Ritz-Carlton. The city buzzed with anticipation. Tonight was the annual Rhodes Foundation Winter Gala, a spectacle of wealth, influence, and media frenzy. But this year, the air held something electric, something sharp. Rumors had been spreading for days. The Rhodes heir was returning. Inside a luxury suite on the 32nd floor, Natalie stood before a floor-length mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Gone was the hollow-cheeked, exhausted figure in a hospital gown. Tonight she wore a sleek silver evening gown, hand-stitched, fitting her body like liquid metal. Her hair fell in soft waves, makeup subtle but stunning. Strength radiated from her posture. She looked powerful, focused, untouchable. Asher watched quietly from across the room. He'd insisted her security be doubled. He'd insisted on personally reviewing entry lists, camera routes, and emergency exits. He didn't say it outright, but she knew why. Victoria was unpredictable when cornered. And tonight, Natalie's existence cornered her more than ever. You're sure you want to do this? Asher asked, adjusting his cufflinks. He wore a tailored black tuxedo that made him look every bit the billionaire strategist he was. Natalie nodded. If I don't show up, she wins. He's Mixa. Asher hesitated. This isn't just a gala. This is a battlefield. Everyone who matters will be there. And every single one of them has read the headlines. He wasn't wrong. Grant Mercer arrested. CEO implicates Hale Capital. Victoria Hale under investigation for corporate collusion. The mysterious return of Natalie Rhodes. Who will inherit Rhodes Industries? Natalie inhaled slowly. If they see me standing, they'll know I'm taking back what's mine. Asher smiled faintly. Then let's give them a night they'll never forget. A knock sounded. One of Asher's guards opened the door. Miss Rhodes, your car is ready. Natalie glanced at Asher. He offered his arm. Shall we? As they walked into the ballroom, conversations died mid-sentence. Camera flashes erupted instantly. Reporters leaned forward, mouths parted, heads craned. Even the string quartet faltered. Natalie Rhodes had returned, and the room felt it. Miss Rhodes. Natalie, over here. It's Miss S. How does it feel to take your rightful place? Is it true you're reclaiming the company? Are you pressing charges against Victoria Hale? Natalie held her chin high. Asher stayed close at her side, his hand steady against the small of her back, a silent shield. She could feel her heart pounding, but she didn't falter. She greeted donors, industry giants, old family allies who had once vanished, and new faces who watched her like she was both legend and threat. Then the room shifted. A cold ripple washed across the ballroom. Victoria Hale had arrived. Cameras swung toward her. She was dressed in emerald silk, diamonds flashing, smile tight as a wound, but beneath the elegance, there was panic. Her empire was crumbling, her influence slipping. And tonight, she had no control. She approached slowly, each step deliberate. Natalie, she said, her voice icy. You look alive. Natalie didn't blink. Try to hide your disappointment. A few guests choked on laughter. Victoria's jaw tightened. You're making a mistake, Victoria hissed. You are stepping into a war you don't understand. Natalie leaned in slightly. You're right. I didn't understand before, but now? Her eyes hardened. Now I know you stole my mother's life, destroyed my father's trust, tried to erase me, and weaponized my husband against me. Victoria's expression cracked with the slightest tremor. And tonight, Natalie continued, everyone here will see exactly who you are. End quote. Victoria scoffed. And who's going to expose me? You? No, Natalie said, stepping aside. Asher held up a small black device, a remote. Victoria's face drained of color. What are you? He pressed it. The ballroom screens flickered. Then a video began to play. Victoria's voice filled the room, recorded from a private board meeting. She's young, emotional, easy to discredit. Remove her quietly. We can take full control once she's gone. Gasps exploded around the ballroom. Phones lifted. The board members stared in horror. Natalie didn't move. Victoria's eyes widened in panic. You have no idea what you've done, she whispered. Natalie met her gaze coldly. Yes, I finally fought back. Before Victoria could speak again, a voice behind them boomed. Rhodes Industries Security, Victoria Hale. You're under investigation. Please come with us. The entire ballroom turned. Victoria's guards stepped toward her. And for the first time, panic flooded Victoria's eyes as she whispered, Natalie, you'll regret this. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Guests whispered behind jeweled hands. Reporters scrambled for angles, cameras flashing like lightning. The string quartet stopped mid-note, stunned into silence as security moved toward Victoria Hale. But Victoria, calculating even in panic, lifted her chin. This is a misunderstanding, she said loudly, flashing a brittle smile at the nearest cameras. Someone manipulated that recording. I will not be slandered by a desperate girl with... Desperate? Natalie cut in, stepping forward. The entire room went still again. You drugged me. You blackmailed my husband. You tried to erase me from my own family's company. Laughter, soft and sarcastic, left Victoria's lips. Prove it. Natalie inhaled deeply. The moment felt heavier than air. Gladly? Asher nodded subtly. And from across the ballroom, a woman stepped forward, someone no one expected. One of Victoria's former assistants. Her name was Leah Myers, a quiet, mousy-haired woman the world had never noticed. Tonight, she wore a simple black dress and trembling determination. She clutched a silver flash drive in her hand. Victoria's eyes widened. Leah, what are you doing? Leah's voice shook, but she didn't back down. Something I should have done a long time ago. Natalie met the woman's gaze. You're safe. We'll protect you. Leah nodded, swallowing hard. Victoria recorded everything. She said it was insurance. She kept files on board members, clients, journalists, even you, Natalie. Your hospital records, your private conversations. Enough, Victoria snapped, lunging forward. Security blocked her instantly. Leah flinched but continued. She instructed Grant to sedate you slowly, to make you seem unstable. She paid your doctor to misreport symptoms. She told Grant that once you were hospitalized long enough, you'd lose all rights to the Rhodes Trust. The room gasped as if struck by lightning. Natalie felt her stomach twist. Dr. Perez, she whispered. He said my fatigue was just hormones. He lied. Leah nodded, tears gathering. He was paid to. Victoria promised him a position at Hale Capital. Natalie's hands curled into fists. Her world had been orchestrated, controlled, engineered to break her. Victoria spat. You stupid girl. You have no idea what you've done. Asher stepped forward, voice cold. Actually, she's done the right thing. Natalie addressed the crowd, her voice steady but trembling with emotion. This woman stole my mother's life. She blackmailed my father. She coerced my husband into tormenting me. And she tried to kill me before I ever learned who I was. A stunned silence fell over the room. Victoria tried one last time to fight. I built that company. I made Rhodes Industries survive when your family fell apart. You built a kingdom on corpses, Natalie replied softly. And the foundation is finally cracking. Leah handed the flash drive to Rhodes Security. Everything is here. The transactions, the recordings, the plans. Victoria lunged again, screaming, "You traitor!" 2 guards grabbed her arms. Her composure shattered. Diamonds shook at her ears as she thrashed, her voice echoing across the ballroom. "You'll all regret this. I'll destroy every one of you. You don't know who you're dealing with." Asher whispered to Natalie, "She's unraveling." Natalie exhaled. "Good." Reporters surged forward as security escorted Victoria toward the exit. Cameras caught every second. The woman who once ruled boardrooms with ice-cold precision was now being dragged out like a criminal. But just as she reached the ballroom doors, Victoria whipped her head around and screamed, "I wasn't working alone." A sharp hush fell. Natalie's breath caught. "What does that mean?" Victoria sneered, her voice venom-coated. "Someone bigger than me wants you gone. Someone who knows the road's fortune better than you ever will." The ballroom gasped. Natalie stepped forward. "Who?" Victoria smiled, a smile twisted and triumphant. "Your uncle." The room erupted. Natalie's face drained of color. Her uncle, her father's brother, the quiet man who had disappeared after the accident, was alive, powerful, and plotting? As security dragged Victoria away, she shouted over her shoulder, "He's coming for you, Natalie, and he won't fail like I did." Natalie stood frozen at the center of the ballroom, the world roaring around her like a storm she couldn't hear. Her uncle, her father's brother, a man she hadn't seen since she was 16, a man she believed had died overseas after a political scandal, a man whose name her father never spoke again. Her uncle was coming for her? Asher stepped closer, his voice low and urgent. "Natalie, look at me." She turned slowly, her pulse thundering in her ears. "My uncle? He's alive?" Asher nodded grimly. "Yes, and he's far more dangerous than Victoria Hale ever was." Natalie swayed slightly, the weight of the revelation slamming into her chest. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Your father tried to protect you," Asher said. "Your uncle Thomas Rhodes was forced out of the company years ago. Fraud allegations, insider trading, attempts to seize control of the board. He was exiled by your father himself." "I thought he died," Natalie whispered. "He disappeared," Asher corrected. "And people let you believe he was gone because that was safer." A chill crawled down her spine. So Victoria was working for him. "He's for Mazas." "Not working for him," Asher said. "Fearfully following him. Your uncle has deep connections, military contracts, offshore investors, political leverage. If he wants the Rhodes Empire back, he won't stop at corporate sabotage." Natalie pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. "My whole life, I thought Victoria was the villain. But she wasn't the monster. She was just another puppet." Asher's jaw tightened. "And the puppeteer is still out there." 8. Before Natalie could respond, a Rhodes security officer approached, breathless. "Miss Rhodes, Mr. Kingsley, we found something." He handed Asher a sealed envelope, the expensive kind used on private invitations. Thick, heavy, bruised at the corners as if someone had gripped it too hard. Asher opened it cautiously. Inside was a single sheet of paper, white, elegant, and handwritten in dark ink. Natalie watched Asher's eyes widen as he read. "What?" she demanded. "What does it say?" Asher silently handed her the letter. Her breath left her lungs. It read, "Natalie, your father chose the wrong heir. He forgot who the real Rhodes bloodline belonged to. I will reclaim what is mine, and no princess born of sentiment will stand in my way. Prepare yourself. The game has only begun." Teat. Her fingers trembled violently. How did he get this into the gala? Asher closed his eyes. "Because he's already inside our systems. Inside the company. Inside the security network." Natalie stared at him, horrified. "You mean he's been watching us this whole time?" Asher didn't answer. He didn't have to. A sudden surge of panic tore through Natalie's chest. "We left my son upstairs." Asher's expression snapped from concern to alarm. "We need to get to him now." They ran. Past the stunned guests, past reporters screaming questions, past the fallen champagne glasses and whispered rumors. Down the hallway, into the elevator, Natalie's hands shaking as she jabbed the button for the neonatal floor. The elevator doors opened, and 2 nurses rushed past them, panic in their eyes. Natalie grabbed one. "What happened? Where's my baby?" The nurse swallowed hard. There was a code alert. Someone tried to access the neonatal unit without authorization. Natalie's heart stopped. What do you mean, someone? The nurse looked away. He claimed to be family. If Emily Shadge. Natalie felt ice shoot through her veins. Family? What did he look like? But the nurse didn't need to answer. Because just then, overhead on the hospital intercom, a chilling announcement echoed through the halls. Security alert. Unauthorized individual on the neonatal floor. Lockdown in progress. Natalie's knees buckled. Asher grabbed her arm. Nat, stay with me. She shook her head, panic breaking her voice. My uncle, he's not coming for the company. I want to do it. Tears flooded her eyes as the truth hit like a blade. He's coming for my son. The elevator doors opened to a corridor filled with flashing red lights. A siren blared overhead, sharp and disorienting, sending nurses scrambling and security guards shouting orders. The neonatal unit was in lockdown. The sight of it nearly stopped Natalie's heart. Her lungs seized. My baby Asher, my baby is in there. We're getting to him, Asher vowed, gripping her hand. Stay close, don't let go. If we won. But Natalie barely heard him. The world blurred into a tunnel of noise and panic. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to tear down every door between her and her son. The thought of her uncle, her father's ruthless, exiled brother, stepping anywhere near her child made her blood run cold. 2 hospital security officers ran past. Asher caught one by the arm. What's happening? Asher demanded. The guard recognized him instantly. Mr. Kingsley, someone used a master override code on the neonatal doors. They got past the initial lock, but the secondary seal engaged. The baby ward is secured, but we don't know if the suspect is inside. Natalie's stomach dropped. How did he get the override code? The guard hesitated. It was your father's code. Natalie froze. That code should have been deactivated when he died. It was, the guard said grimly. Someone reactivated it. If Rhodes. That meant one thing. Her uncle had access to Rhodes' systems. He had been planning this long before she even knew he was alive. Asher tensed, jaw sharp with fury. Take us to the viewing window, now. They ran. The hallway outside the neonatal unit was swarming with medical staff and guards. Natalie pressed her hands against the viewing glass, her breath fogging the pain as she searched desperately for her son. There he was still in his incubator, tiny chest rising and falling, oblivious to the chaos around him. She sobbed with relief. But her relief shattered instantly when Asher grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to step back. Nat, look. He pointed to the reflection in the glass. A figure stood behind them in the hallway. Tall, calm, hands clasped behind his back, and familiar in the worst way. Natalie spun around. A man in a charcoal gray suit stood 10 feet away, framed by the pulsating red lights. He looked nothing like the broken memory she held from childhood, not the uncle who used to bring her gifts from overseas, or the uncle who vanished after her mother's death. This man was polished, composed, steel-eyed. Hello, Natalie, he said softly. You've grown. Natalie staggered back. You. Thomas Rhodes smiled smooth, charming, terrifying. I'm disappointed our reunion had to be under such stressful circumstances. I had hoped for something more dignified. Asher immediately placed himself between them. Step back. Thomas lifted an eyebrow. Ah. Kingsley, the loyal watchdog. Natalie's heart pounded violently. What do you want? Thomas clasped his hands behind his back as if addressing a boardroom. What I've always wanted. The Rhodes legacy returned to its rightful heir. Natalie shook her head. My father didn't want you anywhere near the company. He was weak, Thomas replied coldly. He let sentiment control him. He chose the wrong child to inherit the empire. Natalie flinched. I'm his daughter. You are Evelyn's daughter, Thomas corrected, voice sharpening. Your mother ruined everything the moment she convinced Henry to freeze my shares, and when she died. He smiled faintly. I thought the problem had been solved. Natalie's knees nearly buckled. You caused the crash. Thomas didn't blink. I removed an obstacle. Asher lunged, fury in his eyes, but Thomas's men stepped from the shadows, armed, silent, waiting. I wouldn't do that, Thomas warned, not with so many fragile infants nearby. Natalie trembled with rage. You tried to kill my mother, then you tried to erase me, and now you're here for my son? Thomas's eyes gleamed. He's the future of the Rhodes line, and I intend to raise him properly. 18. Natalie's scream caught in her throat. You'll never touch him. Thomas tilted his head. My dear, he won't need touching. He lifted a small device from his pocket, a master keycard, and a thumb drive. Asher paled. What did you do? Thomas smiled like a man revealing his checkmate. I've locked every exit in this hospital. And the next move is yours. Igen. Red emergency lights washed the hallway in flashes of crimson as Thomas Rhodes stood calmly, hands behind his back like he was delivering a keynote speech instead of threatening an entire hospital. Natalie felt her pulse hammer against her ribs. Her son lay just beyond the glass, so close she could see the rise and fall of his tiny chest, but her uncle's presence made him feel impossibly far away. As long as I hold this keycard, Thomas said softly, no one leaves, no one enters. Not without my permission. Natalie's gaze sharpened. Why, my son? Why now? Thomas let out a quiet, humorless laugh. Because children are leverage, sweetheart. Something your father never understood. He thought love mattered more than bloodline. It does, Natalie snapped. Not in business, Thomas replied. And Rhodes Industries is the only family that ever mattered. Your father betrayed that family the moment he cut me out. Asher stepped forward. You nearly killed his wife. He's of. Thomas's eyes flickered. Collateral damage. Natalie felt nausea build in her throat. My son is not your pawn. Oh, but he is, Thomas said. The board will split if they believe the future Rhodes heir is in danger. If the company sees instability, chaos, they will beg for stronger leadership. Someone decisive, someone ruthless, someone like me. You're insane, Natalie whispered. No, Thomas replied. I'm inevitable. Before Asher could lunge, Natalie grabbed his arm. No. He wants you to react. That's how he wins. Thomas smiled approvingly. Well done, Natalie. You truly are Evelyn's daughter, she always thought before she acted. Unfortunately, she acted too late. A sharp pain knifed through Natalie's chest. You killed her, Thomas sighed. Such dramatic words. I removed interference. Had she stayed in her lane, your father would have continued trusting me. But she questioned every decision, every investment, every acquisition. She threatened the entire dynasty. So you ended her, Asher said, voice shaking with rage. Thomas didn't deny it. Natalie's eyes burned, but she kept her voice steady. If you touch my son, I will destroy you. You already tried, Thomas replied, but you're too emotional, too soft. That's why Henry never told you the truth. He thought it would shatter you. Natalie straightened, lifting her chin. I'm not shattered. Thomas's expression tightened for the first time. We'll see. To ever. Suddenly, hospital security rushed down the corridor. The chief officer called out, Miss Rhodes, we're initiating a full lockdown override. We're escorting you and Mr. Kingsley out now. Thomas smirked. And how do you plan to override my override? The security chief lifted a second card. With hers. He held up a badge bearing the Rhodes family crest. Thomas's face blanched. That's impossible. The legacy badge was destroyed. Natalie stepped forward. No. My father gave it to Asher years ago, in case I was ever in danger. Asher pulled the badge from his jacket pocket, its gold emblem gleaming under the red lights. Your brother trusted someone, just not you. Thomas's jaw tightened. You traitor. I'm loyal to the Rhodes who still has a soul, Asher replied. A sudden chime rang overhead, an announcement. System override accepted. Lockdown lifted. The neonatal doors clicked open. Natalie didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward her son's room, Asher right behind her. Thomas lunged to follow, but security blocked him, forcing him back. He thrashed desperately, shouting, You think this ends tonight? You think I'll let you raise the Rhodes heir? That child belongs to me. Natalie pushed into the neonatal unit, tears blurring her vision. Her baby lay safe, untouched, blinking peacefully under the soft glow of the incubator lights. Relief crashed over her like a wave. She reached into the incubator, gently brushing her fingertips over her son's tiny hand. Mommy's here, she whispered. You're safe. But as she held her child's hand, she couldn't ignore the truth echoing through the walls. Thomas wasn't done. He wouldn't stop. He believed her son belonged to him. And he had the resources, the money, and the ruthlessness to start a legal war that could tear their lives apart. As tears streamed silently down her cheeks, she whispered to Asher, What if he tries to take him legally? Asher's jaw hardened. Then we fight. Can we win? She asked, her voice cracking. Asher didn't answer right away. He looked at the baby, then at her. Finally, in a voice low and grave, he said, "Only if you become the Rhodes heir you were born to be." For the next 9 days, Natalie barely left the neonatal unit. She slept in a recliner beside her son's incubator, waking at every beep, every shift in his breathing. Nurses offered her blankets, tea, gentle reminders to rest, but she refused to step away. She couldn't not when danger lingered like a shadow outside every door. But danger wasn't the only thing haunting her. Each quiet moment brought a new wave of memory. Her mother's smile, her father's silence, her uncle's voice dripping venom, Grant's hands holding the teacup that nearly killed her. The wounds felt layered, tangled, stretching back years. Her entire life had been shaped by lies she never knew existed. One afternoon, as her son slept peacefully, Natalie finally whispered the truth she had been afraid to say aloud. "Asher, I'm not strong enough for this." Asher looked up from the sofa across the room. He had barely slept either, refusing to leave her or the baby unprotected. His stubble had grown in, his eyes carried exhaustion, but his presence was steady, grounded, unmoving. "You are," he said quietly. Natalie shook her head. "I was ready to quit architecture after one bad project. I let Grant convince me I was worthless. I let Victoria poison my life. And now my uncle, he wants my son, Asher." Her voice cracked. "What if he takes him? What if I lose everything again?" Asher stood and went to her, kneeling beside her chair. "Look at me." She didn't. "Natalie," he said gently, "look at me." She finally lifted her eyes. "You survived an overdose you didn't know you were taking," Asher said softly. "You survived childbirth alone. You survived betrayal, blackmail, manipulation, and trauma stacked on trauma. You found the strength to return to your family's legacy and expose the most dangerous woman in Manhattan." His voice deepened, thick with feeling. "You're not weak. You're wounded. And those are not the same thing." Natalie swallowed hard. "Then why does it feel like I'm drowning?" "Because you've never been allowed to heal," he whispered. The words struck her like a painful truth. She had lived her entire life, reacting, surviving, not recovering. A nurse entered quietly with a small smile. "Miss Rhodes, your son is strong enough for skin-to-skin contact now." Natalie's breath caught. "Really? Really?" The nurse lifted the tiny baby and placed him gently against Natalie's chest. He was warm, feather-light, his small fingers curling instinctively against her skin. A sound escaped him, soft, content. Natalie's tears fell silently. She held her son close, feeling his heartbeat sync with hers, feeling something inside her stitch itself back together. For the first time since the nightmare began, she felt whole. Not fully healed. Not yet. But whole enough to remember who she was. Asher watched, emotion tightening his throat. "He knows you're his mother." Uncreases. Natalie brushed her cheek against the baby's hair. "I'll protect you," she whispered. "No matter what." Asher exhaled slowly, a flicker of relief breaking through his worry. But the peace didn't last. A knock sounded at the door. A nurse stepped inside, holding a tablet, her expression uneasy. "Miss Rhodes? I think you need to see this." Natalie adjusted her son carefully as Asher took the tablet. A live stream played on the screen, news reporters gathered outside the hospital, microphones raised, cameras flashing. A breaking news headline ran across the bottom. "Thomas Rhodes files for emergency custody of his nephew." Natalie's lungs collapsed. No, he wouldn't. But the video continued. Her uncle stood before the courthouse steps, surrounded by lawyers, reporters hanging on every word as he painted himself as a devoted family protector. He spoke of Natalie's mental instability, her dangerous medical condition, her inability to make sound decisions so soon after trauma. He ended with a chilling promise. "I will ensure the child's safety. I will not allow him to grow up under instability." Natalie's grip on her baby tightened. Her voice trembled with rage. "He's trying to take my child." Asher stepped closer, eyes blazing with fury. "He won't," he said. "But to stop him, you'll have to fight harder than you ever have." Natalie lifted her tear-filled eyes. "What do I have to do?" Asher inhaled deeply. "Become the Rhodes heir in public. Tonight." Natalie had never imagined standing before a bank of microphones with the entire world watching. Yet as the black SUV rolled to a stop outside the Rhodes Industries headquarters, she saw hundreds of reporters, cameras, and flashing lights all waiting for her. The cold Manhattan wind whipped across the plaza, but she barely felt it. Her baby was safe in the hospital's highest security unit under round-the-clock surveillance. Asher had insisted on it before allowing her anywhere near this press conference. Asher stood beside her now, straight-backed in a tailored charcoal suit, his presence solid and anchoring. "You sure you can do this?" he asked quietly. Natalie adjusted the pale cream coat around her shoulders. The coat had belonged to her mother. Wearing it tonight felt like carrying Evelyn Rhodes into battle with her. "I have to," she whispered. "For my son." Asher held her gaze for a moment. "Then don't think about the cameras. Think about him." Natalie nodded. Security opened the SUV door. A burst of cold air and blinding flashes hit them instantly. "Natalie Rhodes, it's Abidara. Is it true your uncle is filing for custody? Are you claiming your position as heir? Are you mentally fit to lead Rhodes Industries? Why were you hospitalized? Were you drugged?" Natalie forced herself not to flinch, not to hide, not to run. She stepped onto the small stage, set up at the plaza entrance. Behind her, the 20-story glass tower of Rhodes Industries rose like a monument to everything she had lost, everything she would reclaim. Asher stood just behind her shoulder, not in front, not overshadowing, supporting her exactly the way she needed. Natalie gripped the sides of the podium, microphones angled toward her. The crowd fell into a hush. "My name is Natalie Rhodes," she began, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "For years, I believed I had no place here. I believed I was weak. I believed I was ordinary." She looked at the sea of cameras. "I believed what people told me I was." She inhaled deeply. "But nothing opens your eyes like almost losing your life. And nothing gives you strength like becoming a mother." The crowd murmured. Natalie continued. "I was drugged for months by my husband under the direction of Victoria Hale." Gasps rippled through the plaza. "I survived an emergency C-section because of their actions. I survived attempted manipulation, corporate sabotage, and lies meant to erase me from existence." Flashbulbs exploded like fireworks. "And yesterday, my Uncle Thomas Rhodes filed for emergency custody of my newborn son." A wave of outrage swept the journalists. Natalie's voice sharpened. "He does not want to protect my child. He wants to use him, to take the Rhodes name, to seize power that never belonged to him." She paused, letting silence settle. "My father tried to shield me from the darkness surrounding this company, but I'm not hiding anymore." Asher's breath caught pride, fear, both. "I am the rightful heir of Rhodes Industries. I will take my place not out of ambition, but out of necessity. For justice, for my family, and for my son's future." Reporters shouted questions, but Natalie lifted her hand, quieting them. "Today marks a new beginning," she said. "The Rhodes legacy will not be defined by greed, corruption, or violence. It will be defined by rebuilding, healing, and truth." She stepped back from the microphones. The plaza erupted with noise, cheering, shouting, flashes. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Asher took her arm gently. "Nat, that was extraordinary." She exhaled shakily. "Do you think it's enough to stop him?" Asher didn't answer immediately. He looked toward the street, where a sleek black sedan had pulled up across the plaza. The door opened. A man stepped out, tall, cold, familiar. Natalie's blood ran ice. Thomas Rhodes. He stood watching her, eyes filled with calculation and something else she couldn't name. A slow smile curved his lips as he lifted a document folder in his hand. Asher tensed. "Nat, stay close." Thomas's voice carried across the plaza. "Very impressive, my dear. But the board just made their decision, and you're not going to like it." For a long moment, time froze on the plaza, reporters silent, cameras lowered. Even the cold Manhattan wind seemed to stand still. Natalie stared at her uncle, her pulse drumming through her ears. Thomas Rhodes held the document folder as if it were a weapon he had waited decades to unleash. He approached with slow, confident steps. "This," he announced, lifting the folder, "is the board's formal resolution. A vote taken this morning." Natalie's breath caught. "You manipulated them." Thomas smiled. I persuaded them. Something you've never learned to do. He handed her the folder. Camera zoomed in as she opened it, her fingers trembling not from fear, but fury. Asher leaned in beside her, scanning the page. His eyes narrowed. This wasn't unanimous. No, Thomas agreed. But 8 out of 12 is enough to strip you of interim authority. A murmur rose from the crowd. Natalie lifted her gaze, meeting her uncle's cold stare. You think a piece of paper will undo everything I've done? I think it already has, Thomas replied evenly. You're a frightened new mother, an unproven leader, and a woman recovering from trauma. The board doesn't trust you. Natalie inhaled sharply, the words slicing through her but not breaking her. Not anymore. Fine, she said quietly. Then let them hear the rest. She stepped back to the microphones. The crowd quieted instantly. My uncle is correct, she said. The board voted this morning without speaking to me, without addressing the crimes committed by him, and without acknowledging the danger he put my newborn son in. The crowd erupted with gasps. Natalie continued, her voice gaining strength. But what my uncle didn't mention is that Rhodes Industries is bound by a clause in my father's trust, one my uncle attempted to bury. Asher pressed a small black folder into her hand. The real folder? Her father's folder? My father gave me the power to override any vote taken under coercion, conflict of interest, or duress. She lifted the document for the cameras. This clause was activated the night Victoria Hale and my husband drugged me. The plaza exploded with noise. Reporters shouted over one another. Thomas blanched. That clause was sealed, and only the heir can unseal it, Natalie said. With the proper activation key. She held up the gold badge her father had given to Asher years ago. Her uncle's face drained of color as realization struck. Natalie, Asher murmured. Finish it. She stepped closer to the microphones, her voice firm, steady, unshakable. By the authority granted to me as the legitimate heir of Rhodes Industries, I am revoking the board's vote. Thunderous applause erupted. Thomas lunged forward. You can't do this. You're nothing but... Careful, Asher warned, stepping between them. Natalie faced her uncle with a calm she had never known. You're done, Uncle Thomas. For the threats, for the lies, for what you did to my mother, and for trying to steal my child. Sirens pierced the plaza as NYPD vehicles pulled to the curb. The crowd parted as officers approached Thomas Rhodes. He backed away, panic finally cracking through his mask. No, this isn't over. I built this empire. I deserve. You deserve nothing, Natalie said gently, almost sadly. And tonight, you finally face justice. If it wanna? Police restrained him, reading his rights as cameras flashed wildly. Natalie watched him taken away, not with triumph, not with cruelty, but with a deep, steady exhale. The past had been chasing her for years. Now, finally, she was free. She stepped down from the podium. The moment her heels touched the plaza pavement, Asher reached her. Nat. She turned, breath trembling. You were extraordinary, he said. Every piece of strength you thought you didn't have it was always there. If you seven, tears welled in her eyes. I couldn't have done this without you. You didn't do it because of me, he corrected softly. You did it because you're Natalie Rhodes. The crowd was fading behind them. The sirens grew distant. But in the quiet between them, something new unfolded, something gentle, warm, hopeful. Asher took her hands. You and your son deserve a life without fear, without running, a life built from truth, not survival. Natalie's voice wavered. I want that. In 12 of it. And, he said, stepping closer, if you ever allow it, I'd like to be part of that life. Her breath caught. Asher. No rush, he whispered. You've fought enough battles. When you're ready, whether tomorrow or years from now, I'll be here. Natalie felt tears slip down her cheeks, but for the first time, they weren't from pain. They were from healing. She leaned her forehead against his. I think, for the first time in my life, I might be ready now. His hand cupped her cheek gently. Then let's go see your son. Together, they turned toward the waiting car, a future brighter than anything she'd ever allowed herself to imagine opening in front of them. And as the wind swept through the plaza, Natalie Rhodes whispered the words she had earned through fire, betrayal, and rebirth. I survived. I reclaimed my life. And now, I'm finally home. So, that's how our story comes to an end. And if you're still here with me right now, then something in this journey touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it reminded you of your own battles, your own scars, or the moments you thought you wouldn't make it through, but you did. You're here, and that means something. Natalie's journey isn't just fiction, it's a mirror. A reminder that healing is not loud and strength is not always obvious. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind adapts and converts to its own purposes, the obstacle to our acting. What tried to break you can become the very thing that builds you." And Epictetus said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Natalie didn't control the betrayals, the pain, the loss, but she chose who she became after them. And so can you. If this story made you feel seen, comforted, or inspired, even just a little, then I'm grateful you stayed until the end. Truly, you're part of this little community we're building. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who might need a bit of strength today, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next story. I'm here with you. Thank you for being here with me.